So we're here this morning just to set the stage to have a different kind of conversation, one that goes straight into the realities of building a business. And so I've already warned the girls, let's make sure that we are raw and truthful about what it's really like. These are all really accomplished women who have built great stuff, and we want to hear about their whole journey. And I'm going to start with Shelby. So Shelby, you are the co-founder of Arteria AI. Some of your clients include Citibank and Goldman Sachs. You raised over approximately $50 million, which, funding is not a milestone, but holy shit, $50 million. It's a lot of money. And what was really interesting is that when I asked you about your founding journey and how you came up with the idea, you told me that you actually didn't have an aha moment. And I think that tells us a lot about you. So tell us more about that.
I'll learn how to work a microphone soon. Thanks for having me. I'm so pleased to be here with some of my favorite women. So really appreciate that opportunity. For me, I think I have an aha moment every day. So obviously, for those who don't know, this is my second time building in the documentation tech space. So I'm like the biggest nerd on the planet when it comes to unstructured data. The crunchy problem that really keeps me up at night is that 90% of enterprise data is found in documentation and other unstructured sources, and that large-scale enterprise use less than 1% of their total data to make decisions. That's a wild statistic. And for me, the idea that we could start to unlock real decisions being made with real information is something that has always driven me throughout my career. So I have a mission and a passion. So it's not about that. But I suppose I think that there are two types of founders. Those who have their aha moment and are driven by that big moment, and those who are just meant to be founders and are just going to do the work and look every day with discipline and put one foot in front of the other. And I'm afraid that is probably less cool, but also just so fundamentally who I am is that I get up every day and I think the only way out is through. And I had a huge aha moment yesterday about our global services team and what to do there. And I think I have these little ongoing aha moments about how to find the next unlock in my business. And so I will just say this, in case you're not the type of person who invented Facebook or, invented disco, and you're the kind of person who loves a problem space and will diligently keep on keeping on in that space forever with real focus and extreme sort of discipline, then you're like me, and that's okay too. And it's a different kind of archetype. And so I would say I'm the non-aha moment founder, but yeah, hopefully that's okay.
I love that. Absolutely. Candice, you led as head of business and global GM for Wattpad, and it led to Wattpad's $660 million acquisition. And now you're building your company, Disco. So tell us a little bit about that and how you're reinventing the world through learning, and I guess a bit about your founding journey.
Well, great to be here, Candice. I think Shelby has she's the multi-aha moment founder as opposed to the lack of aha moment founder. So, Disco was started in the pandemic. And it really was a moment of let's make some lemonade out of the lemons that we're all facing here. And what we realized in the pandemic was that behavior change was so massive, right? We went from nobody ever connecting live on Zoom, right? To the only thing you could possibly do. And what was so interesting to my co-founder and I was that we both realized we love learning, and neither of us had ever taken an online course in our lives before. And we're that's so interesting. How is that possible? And what we realized is we like learning when it is social, when it's dynamic, when it's actually leads to a transformation. So a lot of the work that the accelerators do, a lot of the work that real social cohort-based learning delivers, you really get results from that type of learning. And that was the initial seed of Disco. What's so interesting is that I was an early investor in AI. In fact, after Wattpad, that's what I did, is I had a pre-seed fund, and it was very focused on the AI ecosystem. And so it was very obvious to us very early that things that took a lot of time and effort and were very hard, like running experiential learning programs, would automatically be much less hard with the help of AI. And so we heavily invested in the AI ops to take any kind of data and any kind of material and really use AI to create learning programs that could deliver transformation. And we just kept doubling down on like, how can we make the operations of learning better? And how can we make the learner experience better? Because now we've trained, everybody's been trained on having conversational interfaces. And so we just said, let's build a modern platform. And it's interesting because we started with an ICP that was focused on just learning businesses. And what we realized, learning happens in companies, and actually companies are communities. And so we've just expanded our market specifically into workforce, and Disco's really taken off since then.
So you're talking a lot about the evolution of your business, which I think is really important. And Mallorie, you're the founder on this panel that has been running her company for the longest time. Is it 13 years or?
13 years.
13, yeah. So that's incredible.
Still alive.
Still alive. Still, exactly. And Mallory's company, Bridgit, is very core to how construction projects are managed. And you've had your share of incredible milestones, like raising $43 million as well. And now what really I love about your story is that it started in Next 36 and ultimately over the years has really evolved in how you solve the problem. So maybe you could walk us through the evolution of Bridgit.
Absolutely. And part of that $43 million is actually from CIBC. So just another honorable mention to one of the sponsors. So started at the very end of 2012 in the Next 36 program. And I really relate to what Shelby said in terms of just putting one foot in front of the other and making progress every day. That's what we've been doing for 13 years now. And I'll just maybe share some stories of what that actually looks like in the early days. I think a lot of you are starting companies right now, and it's hard to know how you really put the work in to get to that next step. And so for us, putting one foot in front of the other was the first night as part of Next 36. We had this idea that the construction industry needed more innovation, more technology. And so that night we called 15 different people within the construction industry to learn more about their pain points. Once we had a little bit of a seed of an idea, we took that to showing up unannounced on construction job sites. And we were trespassing, but we essentially showed up with coffee and donuts. We called it crane hunting, where we would essentially look for a crane in the sky, drive to that job site, show up and ask questions. And these construction workers that are seen as being so tough just poured out their feelings to us about all of their frustrations. And we leveraged that as the initial product research. And many of those initial research contacts became customers. The early days, you don't have a lot of capital. And so some of the things we had to do were not remitting money to the CRA so we could extend our runway until the next invoice came in. For those of you that have run payroll before, we were kind of holding some of that back. We didn't have enough capital to go to New York to do sales meetings. So we would fly for one day. We would walk onto 40 job sites. We would trespass, go up the hoist of those job sites, and we would sell our app because we knew that it reduced the sales cycle. And so these are some of the things that I think, it's a stage that a lot of you are in now, where you really do just have to every single day wake up, be excited, figure out how you can learn from your customers, how you can solve their problems. And that's how we are around 12 years later. A lot has happened. A lot of milestones have been hit. There have been a lot of challenges along the way. But every day you have to wake up and think about, what do I have to do next to advance this business?
Notes taking, trespassing, withholding CRA money. Notes taken.
I'm going to need Denton soon too.
Yes, I can delete from the record. Thank you. That was a great answer. Shelby, when I was going through a rough time, you talked to me so confidently, and you said something to me that really I carry every day, which was, Marie, you're going to get through this because you're freaking awesome. But if you don't, you're going to be still awesome. And you're just going to be completely fine. And this was when I was going through a really wrong time. And this is a year ago now. And it's full circle. I'm doing just freaking fine. So how... So first of all, thank you for being such a great friend in that moment. But also, I want to know, like, you're such a steadfast leader. You can talk so ambitiously about where you're going to take that company, but then you have this even keel way of just like carrying yourself. So I guess the question is how you do it.
I've been thinking a lot about this question. First of all, I really believe that we are not defined by our companies. And what did you say last night? It was so powerful. You said, we grow from our companies. And I think that that's a really important thing to realize, that, if you take nothing else away, but in my case, my daughter believing that women are always CEOs, that's a really beautiful thing, right? Every day I show up and I try and normalize that it is tough out there and rough out there and fun out there, and that there are both equally amazing things that happen in my business on a given day and terrible things that happen in my business on a given day. And every Friday I meet with my team and I talk about the week in a town hall setting, and I talk about my observations, some of which are really great and then some of which are not so great, or a moment where I failed, or a moment where I didn't show up as my best self in my company. I think it's really important to normalize that I have more failures every day than most people have in like a year, because I have so many at-bats. And so I just try and remind myself that, you get up and go and swing again, and you get up and go and swing again. And maybe some combination of luck and hard work and all of the good things make you great. But also, it really is just a matter of going for it again and again and again. And I have the most self-critical inner voice that you can possibly imagine. But I also, it's added up to being able to do so much because I have just kept going and really just done that. So I would say no one gets to be on this panel who's not had some tough days. And no one gets on this panel who's just been lucky and isn't a little bit ruthless or tough or really, raw in their soul. And I think that normalizing that is okay as well, because I think that it's okay, especially, growing up. I just felt like I had to be, and I still am so grateful for everything in my whole life and lucky to be here. But also I just think it's like, oh, sorry, I'm coming closer to the mic. But also I just think it's so important to understand that it's okay to also be hyper ambitious, and it's okay to want to go long, and it's okay to want to build an iconic Canadian company and not be apologetic for that. So I suppose I don't do a very good job of any of it, but I do my best.
I love that. Candice, Shelby touched a little bit about being humble with her team. And I think one of the things you've done at Disco that's really admirable is the amazing people you've brought around the mission. You have amazing talent. And I would love to hear a bit about that. And maybe you could walk us through your best hire that you ever made, and what their qualities are for those that might be thinking about making some hires, and then maybe the worst, because that's just fun.
Sure. Well, I mean, I was thinking a lot about this question, and I was like, how can I choose just one, right? I actually think that's what building a company is. It's like building an anchor or a North Star that attracts the best and brightest people who really are extremely passionate and capable to fulfill on the mission your company has. And so having a really, really clear North Star and a really clear set of values, actually the job kind of gets done for you, because they find you as much as you find them. So this is a very tough question if you ask me just one. So I may have to I'll do one, but I'll give some side nods as well. I actually think, one of the best hires I had, and it speaks to just young people, right, is an intern that I hired. And it was very interesting because I saw a bunch of young people and I was like, honestly, they're not entrepreneurial. I'm sorry, guys, we're not hiring these these interns. And all of a sudden, this woman showed up on my Zoom, and she literally blew me away. So she was an immigrant. She had come to Canada on her own. She had an energy and a growth mindset and a curiosity that just like oozed through that Zoom screen. She told me about her time at university, and she'd done two things that I thought were so fascinating. She said, I think women should strength train, and there was no women's strength training club, and so I just started it, and now there's 300 people who strength train, all women. And she's like, I just was super curious what VC is, so I like begged a VC to let me be a scout on campus for that. I'm like, you're just hired already. The interesting thing about her is that she came back term and term again, and now she celebrated her 2-year work anniversary at Disco, and she's a marketing manager, and she is like unbelievable. Like, this woman is going far. So I'm going to name her. It's Arthi. So hopefully Arthi can watch this or hear about it. You can tag her. But I say that was one. Another just really quick one. A lot of our company has been built on relationships that we've had in previous companies. And so just to like give people a call out here, like who you work with now, you never know, right? You never know where your careers are going to go or how that's going to lead to new things. And I can say my life is just a series of connections that have resulted in new opportunities and connections. And so Chris Stefanik, this is the 3rd time I'm building companies with him. I mean, just think about that. It's our whole career. Tourstar Digital, Wattpad, and now Disco. Wendy Foster, who was like head of data science at Shopify, worked with her at Wattpad, is now like literally insanely important to us at Disco. And we worked with an agency, Renga, I don't know if you know, we just hired Jared Henriquez. He shut down his agency and joined Disco. So just to say, like, people follow people. Worst hire super fast. Actually, the worst hire I made was when I was at Wattpad. And it was because I wanted somebody who I thought had all this industry experience, right? Like, I was like, we're trying to go into brand-based marketing. So I was like, oh, I got to find somebody who's like really got all those relationships and super established. And he ran like a big company's branded entertainment unit. And it was a total disaster because he was not a startup person. And I just think like startup people, they look different, they feel different, they act different. Industry expertise is amazing, but unless you have that fire in your belly, unless you're willing to have massive ambiguity, it's not for you. And it's okay. It's just not a good fit. So that would be the one I would highlight.
Made a lot of those enterprise hires.
Yeah.
That
and so expensive, like so much money and not at all what we needed. So
first VP of sales, right, Michelle, in New York? Oh, a bad one. All right. We forgot about that one. Let's go into fundraising. We talked about all of you have raised a ton of money, and obviously it's changing a little bit right now. So maybe some of your tips come to that. But I asked you all to prepare one hot take on fundraising. So Mal, do you want to start?
Absolutely. So the fundraising market for women in particular has evolved so much since we started our journey at Bridgit. And I think the one thing that I learned, especially in the early days, is that you have to focus on the things that you can control. And so we talked to a ton of investors who they didn't believe in us because we didn't have a technical co-founder, or they couldn't understand why 2 women were in construction and were really the 2 that were going to go and evolve and help innovate in the industry. And there was all these I think people that we met with that doubted us. There was luckily a handful of very special people who didn't, but it was very discouraging at a lot of times. And so what we put our minds to is that, we could focus on our metrics of the business. We could prepare a data room. So when we were talking to investors, we had all of the materials that they were going to ask for and turn them around quickly. We were very prepared going into meetings and had, I think a really great pitch deck, and we knew all of our numbers, and those were things that we could control. And I think it's always hard to go and fundraise. It's never easy. Even when it's easy, there's still challenges and bumps along the road, and the deal's never maybe what you imagine it to be. But I think if you can just focus on the things that you can control, that is the best way to get through the process, and what we've really focused on in all of our fundraising efforts.
This also applies to parenting.
All right, good tip.
Shelby, what's yours?
Mine is along a similar line, which is take the power back. So people used to always say to me, like, what's the TAM in financial services? And there was this whole debate. What's the TAM? What's the TAM? Particularly when you're doing early rounds. If you don't believe in my TAM and you don't believe that financial services transformation has a TAM, we shouldn't be on the phone. And so me finally saying, you know what, guys, I'm going to ask you to satisfy yourselves as to the TAM not on the calls with me. Thank you so much. And if you don't believe in the TAM, let's not do this, because you're never coming into my company, and that's okay. And even now, and it's another thing about my business, we work with the largest customers in the world globally. And people love that about our business. And some people want to ask me about customer concentration. We are a 4.5-year-old company, and we serve the largest customers in the world. You should be well aware we have customer concentration, and let's not talk about it. And if you want to talk about it, again, I'm not here for that, and I'm off the phone. And so I will just say this: there are investors who want to be in your companies. Find them, get to know as quickly as possible with those who are never really coming in. So another thing I'll do is say, take a look at the financials first. If you still like us after that, you're going to love us. So just let's clear that out the way. And I just try and clear as much trust and transparency and show all the problems, which is 100% the opposite of every hot tip and take you would ever hear from any fundraising panel. But for me, it's just really been quite breathable to just be myself, because if you come into my company because I hoodwinked you, it's not going to go that well anyway at the board. And so really I'm looking for people who want to join our mission as is, not one they want us to be on.
I told you about her steadfast leadership. Candice.
So I feel like there's a lot of early stage companies in the room. And I think early stage fundraising is wildly different than later stage fundraising. So my hot tip for early stage fundraising: one, it is psychological, right? There is a power dynamic that Shelby has pointed out, and it's really, really real. At the stage that you're at, you actually likely have very little data. You have some numbers, you have some experiments that you've run, but really all you have is your team and your story, right? And I think the important things that you need to do very, very well is paint an incredible picture of why your company, if you're going for venture-backed funding, which is also wildly different than other forms of funding, is going to be $1 billion company. So 1 is narrative, 2 is power dynamics, 3 is your process. So in order to have power dynamics and to have leverage, you can't have this little drip of I have a meeting and then I don't have a meeting, then I have a meeting. Really what you're trying to do is get to a stage where you have people who are more interested in you than you are interested in them. And the minute you have that, things radically change. And the reason I know this is I've saw 3,000 deals as a pre-seed investor before I built Disco, and I'm a venture partner in a Series A fund. And so really what you're trying to create is attention, right? Where you have more people interested in being in your round versus you want them or need them to be in your round. And it's just a felt sense. Don't mind me saying this, VCs are like sheep. So the minute a hot investor is interested in your company, everybody else is can you find me an allocation? And it's the same with powerful influencers or angels. So really thinking about how you're going to create that dynamic can help you significantly. Obviously today, it's a wildly different market, wildly different valuations, and you can and must be a lot further along in terms of prototype traction, etc., than raising in sort of the early days, I guess. So hopefully that's helpful.
I love it. So it's going to be my last question, and we're going to only have time for 1 or 2 questions. So if you're like super eager to get your question, like your hand should be like half risen right now. So cool. I see you. All right. So let's leave on a high note. What is your motto, like your quote that you live by, and that you want to share with everybody to take into their business?
Mine is less of a quote, it's just one word, but reinvention. And I think as a leader, as a founder, as an executive within your business, you just need to constantly reinvent yourself every day, every quarter. Your business is growing and you need to be ahead of that growth. So reinvention would be mine.
In a similar vein, mine is keep showing up as your best self every day and keep trying to improve that best self every day and just keep going and keep showing up and improve every day and get one little bit better every single day.
I'm going to actually give a quote. It's from one of my favorite authors, Viktor Frankl. And the quote goes like this. It says, "Between stimulus and response, there is space. And in that space lies our freedom to choose." And I may have botched the quote, but it's something like that. But what I would say I've had to learn in my journey of entrepreneurship is that, you know, it's hard. You're constantly being hit with the things that go well, the things that don't go well. And really, like, your ability to take the space to choose your response is what will make you able to keep going on this journey and be a really, really great leader and actually find the joy in doing hard things. And so I really did not know that when I was younger. I just thought like I was a ping pong ball of my emotions. I think like as I've gotten older, that has really, really helped me do hard things that can have like a really big impact.
All right, we have time for 2 questions. One right there. Do we have a run of mic? No. Amazing. I'm so sorry.
This is amazing. So I come from a field of regenerative agriculture and raising a fund to invest in a very new idea. $250 billion worth of farmland is going to change hands. And I'm kind of getting in there to see how you can have sustainability baked into this. I'm in very early stage, and you talked about discouragement. And I've had 3 days of that. I'm so beaten. And you talk about, you know, flipping the power narrative. But in those moments of discouragement, how do you, because it's literally about in that moment, you're getting slapped around, you know, this is what you should be focusing on. How do you regroup? How do you respond in the moment? So that's my question. Thank you.
I think so right now, you know, with the scale that we're at, we're really thinking, you know, on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis. But for the first 5 years, everything we were doing was on a weekly basis. So what is the one thing that we need to accomplish this week in order to move the business forward? And we had many of those weeks where, you know, deals weren't closing, no one was answering our cold calls, whatever the issue was. And we would just take a step back in those moments and think, if there's one bit of progress we can make this week, what would that be? And you typically know what is possible to accomplish within the span of the week. It's not a huge timeline. So I would encourage you to not think about the long term of not 5 years from now, but just this week, what can I do to still move this thing forward despite a few discouraging days? And I promise you'll have many more successful weeks and many more successful days that will balance out the 3 tough ones.
I can share. I think what I've just really tried to do every time something doesn't go well is really have this attitude of like, life happens for me, not to me. What can I learn from this? What's the one thing I'm taking away from this like massive failure or discouraging thing? Like, what can I take? And also just, this too shall pass. Like, okay, so it was a bad week. Next week, next day, next moment.
You guys are so graceful. I'm like, I cry. I'm upset. I'm like raw and real. I mean, when I'm, you know, in that first raise, which is the only, you know, this was before I learned about power dynamics, and someone would call me and say something really dumb about my business, which is why they didn't want to work with us. And like they hadn't heard us or something. I was just like, ugh. Like, I mean, it felt terrible. And so I think recognizing that that is okay, that it felt terrible is totally fine. But also I start from the premise that I will win. Like, I hope you understand when I say that, and these ladies know how much I mean that. And I may not, but that's not the point. In my heart, I'm like, I will win. And so working back from that, even though in those moments, which are like raw and real, like I intend to win. And if you don't want to be in my company, No thank you to you.
All right, let's call this person right. Go ahead.
Hi. Associate from Anitech Capital. So my question is that is there a moment that when you are like, I gotta start it, I gotta start this business. Otherwise, I will be like regretful. And then what's the first thing that you did after that?
We had an interesting beginning because it was through Next 36. So we were already committed to starting a business before we had an idea or even a business partner or anything. But I think the moment we knew we wanted to pursue it beyond university, we were in our 4th year when we started it, was after we had about a dozen customer or potential prospective customer conversations, and we heard about their pain points, and they confided in us all of their frustrations. They took us on job site tours, and we were like, we can't go tell Justin, the site superintendent at this huge Elliston hospital project, that, you know, he talked to us for 5 hours and we're doing nothing. Like we could not walk away from the pain point that we heard from our customers. And I think actually in the challenging times, going back to your questions, you know, the initial reason of the problem and the initial reason you started the business is so important to come back to really keep you going. But I think it was those early research conversations that made us feel just absolutely committed to solving what we set out to do.
10 seconds. So my co-founder, who I absolutely love, Krista Kornick, we had actually worked on like business plans for over a year. Like we're starting a new business every week. None of them worked. And we just kept ideating. And finally, we had this like real moment where I was actually working. It was a huge job, extremely well paid. And we're working on this on the side. And finally he said to me, he's like, okay, so are we doing this or are we not doing this? And I had this moment where it was like, what will I regret more? Not starting this company around a thing that I care so deeply about, human transformation, or keeping this like really cushy job? And I have to make that decision. I was like, regret minimization. Like I can always hopefully find a job again. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. I think you become unhireable as an entrepreneur in a good way. You don't want to work for other people. And it was that moment. It was just like, what will I regret more? And this is truly what I'm meant to do in the world. I love learning and I love my partner and, you know, I love the space. So let's go.
Big thank you. Thank you to all of you.